Greetings. Today we will be discussing the Renewable Energy Act approved on the year 2010 called Act 82. This will be done by the students André Pagan and Caroline Cruz Gines for the class of Technical Report Writing. On the agenda, we have several points. First of them being what does Act 82 state? The reasoning behind the law, in which we will discuss what were the motives for this law to be implemented. Next, we will be discussing what Puerto Rico has done to meet these goals, in which we will cover all of the moves and aspects that have been changed in the energy generation in the island to complete these goals. After that, we will discuss the consequences of not accomplishing Act 82, in which we will discuss the social, economical, and environmental impacts of not going through with Act 82. And after that, we will be discussing the next steps to take, which we titled The Future of Energy Generation in Puerto Rico, in which we will discuss the alternatives that Puerto Rico has yet to exploit in order to move forward and comply with Energy Generation Act 82.
Act 82 is a public policy for energy diversification by means of sustainable, renewable, and alternative energy in Puerto Rico, created on July 2010. This measure was motivated by the fact that Puerto Rico depends on petroleum to generate 70% of its electrical energy, and each year the cost of petroleum is higher. This policy consists of establishing a series of norms to promote renewable energy generation to meet compulsory short, medium, and extended goals established as the Renewable Portfolio Standard, called RPS. The RPS sets the specific percentages and requirements for the Authority of Electrical Energy and other providers of electrical energy, which must move to renewable and alternative sources during the upcoming 25 years. The RPS also has the responsibility of creating the Puerto Rico Commission of Renewable Energy as the entity in charge to clarify, inspect, and regulate the fulfillment with the RPS. The operational hand of the RPS will be constituted by the Administration of Energy Issues that will be in charge of implementing the decisions, resolutions, and regulations made by the Commission as established on Act 82. Reducing our island dependence on petroleum-based fuels for energy production has more than economic benefits. The use of sustainable, renewable, and alternative energy reduces atmospheric contamination, as can mitigate the effect of pollution that can affect citizens' health. Resumed gained benefits will be cleaner energy generation, the development of new enterprises and new employment, as an increase on social and environmental well-being for our island. The percentages established by the Renewable Portfolio Standard were set for a time frame of 25 years to reach the 20% goal on renewable energy generation by the Authority of Electrical Energy and other providers. They were supposed to gradually increase the renewable energy generation to produce a 12% renewable energy generation by 2015 and a 50% generation by 2020 and a renewable energy generation of 20% by 2035. With this planned strategy, they could reach what had been stated and meant to be accomplished by Act 82. This law was also meant to prepare the island for a new federal law consideration by the United States Congress that foretells the establishment of a federal renewable portfolio standard for the reduction of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases emissions.
The reasons and main motives to implement Act 82 are number one, to diversify the energy production methods for energy conservation and stability, which means that we want Puerto Rico to work with more than one energy generation means, which is mostly petroleum right now and fossil fuels. We want to diversify to what would be wind, to what would be solar energy, to what would be mediums that can be harnessed from within the island and not depend so much on outside resources. Establish short, medium, and long-term goals for renewable energy generation. This is done so that the change is not done abruptly and that we can start uh, one day at a time, to say it colloquially, which means that at first we will start with short goals, which is 12% energy generation. We will then move to a 15% and then a 20%, which is one fifth of the energy generated in Puerto Rico. We want that one fifth of the energy to be generated with renewable resources. We want to, as I mentioned earlier, reduce Puerto Rico's dependence in fossil fuels since they are harmful to the environment and since they are imported from outside, they can be very expensive. We want to promote a self-sustaining energetic economy for the island, which means that we want the money that we would otherwise spend on outside resources to stay on the island and on the local economy. We also want the conservation and protection of the natural resources of Puerto Rico by reducing the emission of harmful gases that can be generated with the current processes that we use for energy generation in Puerto Rico. What has Puerto Rico done to meet these goals? Well, in the year 2016, we could see that Puerto Rico had implemented two wind farms which work with eolic energy, which is energy from the wind, in Santa Isabel, the biggest one, and one in Naguabo. We also have solar farms implemented, which harness the energy of the sun, in Isabela, Humacao, and Guayama. We also have hydroelectric energy generators at the local dams. As we can see in the 2016 energy generation mix, only 2% of the energy generated in Puerto Rico was done through renewable resources. This is 1% for eolic energy, which is wind, 0.6% for photovoltaic, and 0.4% for hydroelectric, which is the water. This falls 10% below the goals stipulated for the year 2015.
Excessive use of petroleum-derived energy sources support the volatility of energetic costs in our jurisdiction. The current energetic policy has maintained a one-dimensional character for the last 60 years, which is the reason why the cost of electrical energy in Puerto Rico is one of the highest and volatile compared to other jurisdictions of the United States. Our government doesn't have control over fossil fuel prices. Therefore, our economy is bound to the economic fluctuations of fossil fuel market prices. This fluctuation results in high costs for Puerto Rican citizens, since it is estimated that Puerto Rico pays 2 times more for electric energy than the rest of the United States. This affects drastically our economic competitivity, increasing costs for companies and business to maintain their establishment here on the island. For each increasing dollar on the cost of fossil fuel barrel, it has been estimated that we have a capital leak of $70 million per year. Not accomplishing Law 82 and not meeting its goals increased Puerto Rico's economic crisis, affecting our citizens' economic, physical, and psychological health as a repercussion of energy generation insecurity caused by the economic downfall coming from unstable prices of petroleum. Also, we are still creating a negative environmental impact by using this kind of energy generation. Most of Puerto Rico's transportation depends on gasoline, and almost all households depend on electrical energy provided by the Authority of Electrical Energy, which still depends mostly on petroleum. It has to be mentioned that the generators of the Authority of Electrical Energy have been malfunctioning in the recent period, since its structure is very old and damaged one, where lately the citizens of Puerto Rico are with the uncertainty of when their electrical services will collapse again. Even though all these problems are at hand, citizens are still paying approximately 20 cents per kilowatts on electrical energy. Also, our energetic policy is still contributing gravely on the global phenomenon of environmental pollution. As an island, our nature should be one of our greatest allies. An option for the citizens will be individually search for a company that best suits their needs to supply solar energy for their homes. But this alternative is not for everyone, since it involves an initial high-priced investment. The government of Puerto Rico needs to prioritize and attend this problem urgently, since our people, our economy, and our planet need an urgent change on energy supply sources to have a stable and developing country.
So, how can we help Puerto Rico pick up the slack in the energy generation department? If we want renewable energy to be added to the local economy, we first need to do a major rethinking and redesigning of the energy distribution system of the island so that the renewable energy generation facilities can be supported. This is due to the fact that the current electric grid of the island does not have the necessary capacity to sustain and support the injection of outside energy. This means that without the proper energy generators, auxiliary generators, the system could literally crash and burn if this is not modified accordingly. Another alternative to doing a major redesigning of the system is to create microgrids. Microgrids are local webs of energy in which the power can be generated locally and distributed within a predetermined number of houses or buildings. It can be as small as one or two houses or as big as 20, 30, 40, even an entire city or maybe an entire district. This would fall under the criteria of the Autoridad de Energía Eléctrica at the moment to see which is the best alternative to take into consideration and also implement. So, what are the options? We can implement photovoltaic generation, which is to utilize the power of the sun. This method has been rapidly growing in the past 20 years, and development has made it to the point that costs are very low and they keep dropping while efficiencies keep getting higher. so it could very well power the entire island at the moment. We also have the option of land-based wind farming, which is to put windmills in places where there's high wind. And these wind farms, what they do is that they convert kinetic energy of the wind into electric energy, which is what we use to power our everyday devices. We could also have offshore wind farming, which is similar to the one stated previously, except by the regard that offshore winds are usually 70% more energetically dense, which means that we could extract more energy from that wind and also generate more energy in the process. There's hydroelectric generation, which right now is used mostly in river dams and lakes, but it could also be used on the sea. We could extract the energy of the waves, extract the energy of the tides, and also extract the energy of underwater currents in the oceans and in the seas. And we could also do the burning of biomass, which is with dead trees and branches. And it's stated that by the time that Maria hit us in Puerto Rico, the biomass created was enough to power Puerto Rico completely for a month. So Puerto Rico, as we can see, has the necessary resources and means to comply with the stipulated goals of Act 82. The main hurdles being faced right now is that Puerto Rico and the government itself does not consider Act 82 to be a priority in the list of things that need to be done in the island. Thankfully, the arrival of Hurricane Maria opened the door to implement these changes by unveiling the flaws in the system that we have right now. So in the future, we can expect these changes to be made and the Puerto Rican government and the island in general to comply with Act 82 so that we can have a better future, a more sustainable economy, and a better way of life in general.